You're listening to Finding Your Future in Food Systems.
All right. Hi, everybody. I see some people are coming in. Welcome to Madison. I'm Ariana Lipsman. I'm on Madison's Leadership Circle, and I'm also a marketing and communications specialist working in regenerative agriculture. And tonight I'm joining you from New York City. So the North American Food Systems Network is a professional association of people working to strengthen local and regional food systems. And we encourage you to join NAFSN if you value a diverse, well-informed, place-based workforce at the helm of this critical change work. And we also want to acknowledge that many of the organizations and agencies that do the work of strengthening their local food systems, including farmers, are currently under political duress. And funding cuts to sustainable agriculture and food access programs threaten our profession and America's overall food security. So it's with determination that we continue to host this series so that more and more people understand how essential these roles are to the vitality of local economies, the health of communities, and the responsible care of Earth's natural resources. So now I'd like to introduce you to the host of this episode, Jeffrey Sheh, and to our visiting co-host from the Organic Farmers Association, Ryan Montero.
Thanks, Ari. And thank you all for joining us for the first episode of the 10th season of Finding Your Future in Food Systems. For those of you tuning in for the first time, this series is produced and hosted by students to help emerging professionals and others navigate the wide range of quickly evolving career opportunities in community food systems work. My name is Jeffrey, and I am a third-year food science and global development major at Cornell University and a student staff member for NAFSN. We are joined tonight by Ryan Montero, Racial Equity Project Manager for the Organic Career Network of the Organic Farmers Association.
Hey everyone, great to see you here. I'm Ryan, a third year PhD student at Northwestern studying food movements, race, and resistance, specifically among Black and Indigenous communities. And it's so great to be here with Kim, Ari, and our speakers and everyone here in attendance. It's also very encouraging that more than 188 people have registered for this event today, which we're really excited about. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared with all the registrants later this week by email, so you can expect that to come in your inbox.
Before we get started, we'd like to sincerely thank this episode's sponsor, the Organic Career Network, a part of the Organic Farmers Association. The Organic Farmers Association is an organization dedicated to building a national movement to advocate for policies that support organic farming, strengthen farmer capacity, and foster collaboration among organic farm organizations, ultimately ensuring a viable organic food system and a healthier planet. We'd also like to acknowledge and appreciate our full year sponsors, Grapevine Local Food Marketing, Roots of Change, and Harrisdale Homestead.
And it's great to see so many people attending live tonight and some familiar names that I see in attendance. We encourage you to keep your video on if you choose. And for our speakers to have a better understanding of who's present with us today, we ask that you add to the chat your name, location, and areas of interest in food systems work. And if you're currently affiliated with a food systems organization, institution, or agency, feel free to add that as well. NAFSN is all about professional networking, so please take advantage of this opportunity to meet and connect with others through the chat today. And throughout the webinar, we'd also like to ask you to write your questions for our guest speakers in the chat, and Jeffrey will curate these questions for you during a Q&A with each speaker.
NAFSN is headquartered in Ithaca, New York, which is located on the traditional homeland of the Gaikono of the Cayuga Nation. We have 3 guest speakers with us here today. All of our speakers for this episode were recommended by Ryan and the OFA team. We'll begin our conversations with Anders Gurda from Freestone Media. We will continue our conversations with Libby Mucciarone, from the Organic Trade Association, and we will wrap up our conversation with Madison Letizia from our season sponsor, the Organic Farmers Association. It's a pleasure to meet all of you, and we are so excited to get started. And to reiterate what Ryan had said earlier, please remember to put any of the questions that you may have for our guest speakers in the chat. and Ryan and I will work to curate them for you after each speaker presents.
And our first speaker for the evening, I'm excited about all three of these speakers. But Anders is the founder of Freestone Media, a media production company based in Madison, Wisconsin. And merging his love for of farming with his passions for filmmaking and storytelling, Anders works with and for those at the headwaters of our agricultural supply chains. Since 2015, Anders has been making documentaries, educational videos, branded content, and podcasts in collaboration with an array of skilled animators, script writers, and fellow filmmakers. And he feels really lucky to be making a living doing something that he loves. And Anders and I met through the organic sector, and we're super excited to have him here today. So without further ado, please take it away, Anders.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan. So I'm a filmmaker in the food and farming space. I run Freestone Media, and so the logo that you saw there was a peach, which is, there's Freestone and Clingstone peaches, which you may be aware of, and Freestone are the ones you just get to twist, and it's all fruit, no pit. So that's one of the places that comes from. Based in Madison, Wisconsin, but there's not a huge film industry here in southern Wisconsin, so I do a lot of travel, a lot of time on the West Coast last year, and down south of Miami, east. So based in Madison, but do a lot of travel. I've been doing filmmaking for about 12 years to varying degrees. Over those 12 years, I've moved 6 times, lived in 2 states, had 2 kids, now 5 and 8. So a lot of life through that journey. And through that time, kind of was able to find some clarity about what I wanted to do, but more importantly about the kind of life that I wanted to live, and then about calculated to figure out what would get me there. And that's kind of the genesis of the story. So beginning at the beginning, I'm a city kid. When I'm in agricultural circles, I say I'm a reformed city kid, grew up in inner city Milwaukee, public schools, with this kind of inexplicable love for and curiosity about farming. Went to school in northern Wisconsin for religion and philosophy of all things, but I spent every summer farming. And that was one of the first times that I noticed that the things that I was spending my time on when I was liberated from obligation and expectation were actually the things that I wanted to do, right? That's the more important information. So with that time, I spent every summer farming on CSA farms. Loved it, really wanted to be a farmer. Like, I'm guessing some other people on this call had that desire. But I'd worked on enough farms also to start to learn about the sacrifices that are made and to live that lifestyle, and realize that I didn't want to farm per se, but I still wanted to be in the world of food and farming and agriculture. And I love teaching. So I started to do teaching kids around food access, food sovereignty. This is kind of the wham bam story. Moved to New York City for a couple of years, Olympia, Washington for a couple of years, Minneapolis, Minnesota for a couple of years, doing youth empowerment work. So getting to be kind of a salaried farmer, but also the crop I was growing was more kids and youth than it was the actual food itself. That was great for a few years, but I was probably never going to make more than about $12 an hour. As much as it fed my soul, it was not going to feed my retirement. And so I made the decision, as many people do, to go back to school. And I ended up going back to school back in Wisconsin, got a degree in agroecology from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And while I was doing that, I realized that science was interesting. I was running multivariate ANOVAs and learning about stats and collecting data. I was studying grazing systems, something called mob grazing, which is this like very elegant biomimicked grass-based system. Loved it, but I realized that science is for other people and not me necessarily. I was much more interested in the people and in the stories behind what I was actually doing. But grad school, I got paid to do it. It was wonderful, and most importantly, created a network. And I think that was one of the first times I realized that regardless of the industry I wanted to be in, the most invaluable investment I could make was just meeting people within that space. And that has paid dividends for literal decades for me. And so I was interested in the people and the stories. So I started to bring a camera along as I was collecting data. And I started to interview farmers, just kind of like on a lark, something I was interested in. How do I capture these stories? How do I capture these people? And I was this is like a pivotal moment here. I was at the Moses Conference, now called Marble Seed, one of the biggest organic farming conferences in the country, based in Wisconsin. And I presented my data, charts and graphs and confidence intervals and, all these things that I knew I was supposed to do. And I was like, but let me show you guys the people behind this data. So I started to show these unedited clips of the farmers talking about what they were doing, how they were doing it, how they were applying. After that presentation, someone came up to me and said, can I hire you to edit that together into videos for our YouTube channel? And I just said, hell yes. And then I turned around and said, I don't know how to edit. I don't know how to do that. So I went to the school of YouTube and figured out how to do it. And that was about 15 years ago at this point. So that was the first time that I started to realize and think of myself as a filmmaker, as an identity. It took years to actually be a filmmaker. But there's this guy, James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, who talks about thinking of yourself as the kind of person that does blank, the kind of person that does push-ups when you wake up, if you eventually want to be in shape, right? So I kind of thought of myself as like the kind of person who makes art and media and education documentaries. And that ended up kind of being a through line. So here's the moment, though, where I was realizing I was going to write a thesis that was going to be read by half a dozen people, maybe cited by as many. And then I had these videos, which at this point have been viewed hundreds of thousands of times. They're terrible videos. Please do not look them up. They're all backlit. You can't hear anything. Very embarrassing, but hundreds of thousands of times. So I had this these scales, where is my impact? What is my best and highest contribution to this conversation? And that kind of floored one side and the other was lifted up. And so that's kind of where I started to go. It took a long time to get there. I did a lot of things in between. I ran an organic agriculture research lab. I started an organization called OGRAIN, the Organic Grain Resource and Information Network in Wisconsin. I got headhunted and went corporate for a couple of years just for fun in the ag space, which was a fascinating experience. Started another organization called the Organic Agronomy Training Service, which I now work with Libby on. I was a consultant, worked for companies. I ran communications. So I've done a lot, but through that, I was always doing kind of at least an avocational filmmaking interest. But there was this incongruity between what I was doing, writing emails and being on Zoom calls, and really just wanting to make art and tell stories. And that incongruity was a lot of fear that I wasn't going to be able to make enough money as a filmmaker. I had 2 little kids. I had a mortgage, getting into the realness of making these decisions. And I realized that I just had to eventually close some doors to make it happen. And so getting back to the beginning of not imagining the career I wanted, but imagining the kind of life I wanted to live, I enumerated that, right? I don't like bosses. I didn't want a boss. I don't like being managed. I wanted flexibility. I wanted unlimited vacation. I wanted autonomy over everything, especially money. So if I wasn't making money, my fault, I can fix it. If I am making money, great, awesome, I'm doing something. Follow that thread. So I wanted that power. I wanted to be able to work from home. And most importantly, I wanted time with my kids and my family. That was the priority. And I realized when triaging my life, oh shit, I have a career. That's it, filmmaking. That was a few years ago when I went full-time filmmaking. And so that's what I do. I rebranded, I built a website, I hustled work. And so I do Freestone Media, which is documentary and educational media, kind of predicated on the belief that agricultural media deserves to be sexy, as it hasn't been for a very long time. You can bring high production values, you can bring savvy and kind of graphic brilliance to something that a lot of people don't think deserves that. They don't see that as being part and parcel of the world that we're all in. And so that's what I do. And I think some of the lessons, if there are any lessons that have kind of precipitated out, I let this gestate for so damn long, arguably too long, right? Until I had so much proof of concept that I kind of just couldn't avoid doing it. But that led me to be able to do this with confidence. And I think the biggest piece of advice that I give to like anyone working in any creative trade really is to niche down to scale up. If I were just making music videos, I'd be competing with 10,000 other people, all of them half my age and twice as skilled, right? But if you want someone who knows agriculture, who can do this professionally and deliver well, there's like 6 of us in the country, and we all know each other and we all work together, and it's a beautiful community and we all have plenty of work. So the importance of like that kind of focus So like cameras and microphones are more kind of a means to an end to me, right? I can make things, meet people, travel, excavate stories, make art, and go on adventures. Um, and I think maybe the last thing I'll say is that it's not all about money, but I think for so long I was trapped in this like martyrdom mindset that I thought I was never going to make more than $30,000 a year working for nonprofits. And I think this is something that is endemic in our world. We accept that we should just be able to work unlimited unpaid internships. I did that. I was an AmeriCorps volunteer. I was on food stamps. Like, yes, 100%, that's valuable. And it's okay to ask for what you're worth, and it's okay to advocate for yourself in that way. That's my story. Happy to take any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anders, for sharing that story with us tonight. The first question that I have over here is how do you decide on which stories that you want to help share, or like what is your vetting process like for these prospective features? Because you said there's only what, 5 or 6 of you all in around the country.
Yeah, good question. I mean, a lot of it is taking what comes, being an anemone, and seeing the things float by and deciding what is worth grabbing. Um, I think for me, it's curiosity focused, right? My journey through agriculture has really been identifying something I know nothing about and I'm an idiot in, and then learning more, right? Like I didn't know anything about farming, so I worked on farms as a 19-year-old kid in college and learned about planting and harvesting broccoli. And I was like, I don't know anything about grazing systems. I know nothing about livestock. So I got a master's degree in it and got to play farmer. And then I knew nothing about grain-based systems. I knew nothing about silos and grain bins and combines, the things we see. So I started OGRAIN, the Organic Grain Resource and Information Network, just as much selfishly so I could learn as much as to like be an advocate for and an educator for farmers and to get out of the way and help farmers connect with each other. So I think filmmaking is just like such an easy conduit for me to satisfy curiosities. I spent all last week with a bunch of organic cheese makers at a couple different factories in Wisconsin, which was just like, I kind of didn't even want to bring my camera. I was like, can I just ask you questions about how you make cheese on an industrial scale? Yeah, so it's curiosity based, and something that has a decent budget helps also.
And what qualities are you looking for in partners for collaboration or future projects?
Ooh, that is a good question. Yeah, so I'm mostly like a one-man band. I run my own company, but I have a big stable of collaborators. I'm co-directing a feature-length documentary with the Diverse Corn Belt Project, some of you might know about, talking about changing the conversation around diversity in the I-States. And we have graphic designers and shooters and motion graphics artists that we're working with. And I think it's a solid question. For me, it has just as much to do with like irreverence and humor as anything. If you take yourself too seriously, then we might not work as well together as we might. But I mean, it's like everyone on this call has a passion for food and agriculture, right? In some ways for food systems. And I think that is like such a qualifier that if someone in the film industry comes in and they know their equipment inside and out, they know how to use LUTs, they have this new 8K camera, like cool, but do you give a shit about the right things? Like, are we going to be able to geek out when we stop recording about those things? Because I think so much of storytelling in this realm is passion based. And you're going to have to be able to ask the right questions and kind of vibe in that space. I know it's not a great answer, but I think just like some synchronicities.
All right, and I think we have time for one more question. So I'm going to dig into, if it's okay, something that you said towards the end of your introduction, which is to sort of like niche down to scale up. And you have this wealth of knowledge and lived experiences. So for maybe folks who aren't or who their specialty isn't filmmaking, where do you see other possible ecological like little niches to be found within the food system?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know because I have my little corner of it, but I think. And it's like my dad would always say, follow your nose, right? When like as we all have had years of lostness, of not knowing quite what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a teacher for a while, and so I worked as like a special education assistant. I was following my nose there many, many years ago. And I think that like if you follow your nose enough and like the little hints of wind that lead you there, eventually you find something that gets more and more specific. It's like it's the what is his name? The author who wrote Why? Start with your why. It's like if you keep on asking yourself, why am I interested in agriculture? Well, because I am interested in how we treat our land. Why do I care how we treat our land? Well, it's because I want to have better aquatic systems. Why do I care about aquatic systems? You know, it's like if you ask so many whys, 8 layers of whys, then you get to that like extremely niched answer in which like it doesn't feel like work anymore. It's a very cliched answer, but that's what it was for me.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story and your wisdom with us. This was a fantastic start to our 10th season, but unfortunately we are out of time, so I will turn it back to Ryan to introduce our next speaker.
Yes, our next speaker is Libby Mucciarone, who is a personal manager and passionate leader who is dedicated to finding the best possible solutions for problems and advocating for them when both leadership and with both leadership and colleagues. Her career has touched distinct sectors, including technology, agriculture, and education, leveraging her skills in strategic planning, program management, operations, and technology. In her current role as Director of Programs at the Organic Trade Association, also known as OTA, she plays an instrumental role in administering OTA's USDA Transition to Organic Partnership Program and additional grants, while partnering with dozens of stakeholders around the U.S. in support of domestic market access growth in education. In her tenure, Libby has expanded her knowledge of the organic industry, assisted food and agricultural systems through her roles in engagement, regulatory and government affairs, technology, and in education. In each role, she supported the growth of the organic community while deepening her passion for care for people and planet. And also on a personal note, Libby is one person that I always look forward to having a meeting on my calendar with. So I'm so excited that you can get some of her energy tonight, and I will turn it over to you, Libby.
Well, thanks very much, Ryan. That's very kind. And the feeling is mutual of you as well. And thank you to you and the full team at NAFSN for the invitation to join you all today. And thanks for also putting 2 people that I know on the panel with me. How fortuitous and lucky are all of us. It's really fun to be here with Anders and with Madison as well. As Ryan said, my name is Libby Mucciarone. It's a mouthful. I'm joining you all today recovering from an illness, so apologies for the slight nasal nature of my voice. From remote, blustery, cold snowbelt of northwestern Pennsylvania up in Erie. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I spent my time in the last couple of days thinking about my work and career progression that has led me into the food and agricultural systems here at the Trade Association. And I was thinking about how it kind of reminded me a bit of the game of Candyland of our youth. Never in a million years would I have thought that the longest role in my career path would be in the organic sector or even in the agricultural or food systems, if I'm frankly honest with all of you here. And I think that's part of what makes life and career in general quite fascinating to study and talk about, that you can enter the workforce in your early 20s convinced that this is the one path I'm going to go in, and your decisions at 18 are going to be entrenched and immovable for the rest of your future, and it's really not the case anymore. For me, I've had quite a few stops along the way, as you heard Ryan talk through a bit. And if I think about Candyland, I've had some stops in the Gumdrop Mountains, in the Molasses Swamp, and maybe I think I've landed somewhere around the Peppermint Forest so far. I've used education in my entire career truly as a guidepost. Sometimes I think it's because I've been unsure of really what the next move should be. And it's also always been because I've held really firmly onto the words of Nelson Mandela that education is the most powerful weapon to change the world. And I've always really viewed myself as a change maker in whatever way and in whatever space I can be in. As a lifelong learner, I think die rolls have led me all over the country. I've lived in Indianapolis, Los Angeles, Pittsburgh, Washington, D.C., and now back home to help care for my parents. Along the way, I've completed 2 master's degrees, one in religion and culture. So Anders, I had no idea about that. I guess we have a future conversation in our path. And another master's degree in public policy and management. My career has included work with Fortune 50 companies doing data analytics and legal compliance work. I've private tutored math and Spanish amongst the very wealthy and famous in Los Angeles, and so many other small random tasks that I don't even want to mention right now. I've always found myself looking for something bigger than myself, though, when I thought about career path, where I could make a difference. So my last major career pivot took me to Carnegie Mellon a decade ago, pursuing that degree in policy and management, thinking I was going into education policy, not food or ag. In my second year in my degree, I moved to Washington, D.C. for an apprenticeship and to continue school, which just so happened to be in the exact same building as the Organic Trade Association. And when my apprenticeship team all quit suddenly in March, 2 months before my internship ended, I was kind of panicked both for cash and for my future. And it turned out OTA needed an intern for 4 months, and the stars aligned. There I was working in the food systems space at the Organic Trade Association with not an ounce of information about food systems, sustainability, regenerative, organic, regulatory, or really government affairs systems within the organic or agricultural space. I felt like a novice, to say the least. Nearly 8 years later, and with 3 vastly different roles over that course of time at OTA, here I am. I think the imposter syndrome has started to shake off a little bit, or maybe it's not as glaring as it once was. Perhaps it was that fortuitous die spin is how I fell into my internship at OTA, but the work has changed me, is what I really have started to reflect upon. It's expanded my personal and professional career networks. It's helped me gather new friendships all across the world. I learn every day, even though I lack maybe in the academic background in this space, and I find myself welcomed to grow and to lead in ways that I dreamed in my early 20s and still continue to dream in my 40s. I finally feel like my skills have aligned in a career, and I can see opportunities for me to help change at a local, regional, and national level in this space, things that I had dreamed of at 21, 22. If I look back on the path from college graduation until today, I see some themes that I think still are playing out. I learned that I need to trust my gut, whether that was with a job or with an individual in my life that I was interacting with. I have a theme of asking questions, even when they feel unwelcomed or dangerous. And I think maybe most importantly, I refused to not be myself in any career that I've been in, whether it has been about making changes in systems that was unwelcomed by certain individuals, or just recognizing that others needed a voice standing up for them. That was always a priority for me. As I've mentioned, I've had a variety of jobs at OTA since I joined that staff in mid 2018. It's hard to believe it's been almost 8 years since I joined the team there. A little bit about OTA, if you're not familiar. The trade association is the leading voice for the organic trade in the US, and we represent organic businesses and producers across the nation. Our members include growers, shippers, processors, certifiers, farmers associations, distributors, importers, exporters, consultants, I'm still going on, brands, retailers, and others. There's so much that we represent, and I had no idea when I walked in the door what that meant, and I think I have a clue now. OTA's mission is to grow and protect organic with a unifying voice that serves and engages that really diverse membership from farm to market. And our vision is a world where organic is the foundation of agriculture, resulting in a healthy and resilient future for all people, animals, business, and the planet. So my work here at the Trade Association oversees and supports a variety of programs to meet this vision, primarily focused on leading our organic initiatives to reduce barriers to entry into the organic space for farmers and for businesses. My work primarily is focused on our grant administration for USDA's Transition to Organic Partnership Program, as Ryan mentioned. OTA is one of 8 partner organizations, one of 2 national partner organizations, along with the Organic Farmers Association. And at OTA, our work is leading work to support the domestic supply chain of organic, which includes helping farmers and businesses considering transitioning from conventional to organic farming, or helping them to connect to supply chains if they already are organic certified. I oversee contracts, deliverables that are due to the government. I work with a variety of stakeholders like Rodale and Oats, as Anders mentioned. Anders is actively involved in a major project in all of this and doing fantastic work with it. It's a pleasure to work with him on that. And I get to partner with a number of coalition partners and stakeholders in organic across the country, like Madison and Ryan. It's all really fantastic, the people that I've got to meet along the way. Our top work really focuses on market development, as we've mentioned, and it's really working on technical assistance for farmers, facilitating relationships between businesses and those farmers to expand the supply chain, as well as resource development for businesses that are considering organic certification. My work has really been rewarding. I continue to learn every single day. And as I consider a world moving forward where I will not be working in top and the funding wraps up, I look forward to seeing what the next turn of the wheel looks like, where the die rolls and lands me within the trade association or outside of it. Excited, nervous, all of the same, I think, as we all face on a day-to-day basis. But I think with that, I'll wrap up and look forward to answering some questions from all of you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Libby, for joining us tonight. The first question that I have here, I'll merge 2 questions together. So for Skylar has a question of how specifically does OTA help support small scale farmers who don't have the financial capacity to pay for or maintain organic certifications? And I wanted to add on to that, how does OTA support farmers during that 3-year transition period? Because we often hear that period is when you have to implement organic practices, but you're not able to get the organic premium, so you're in that weird spot. So just wanted to pick your brain about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really great question. And I'll give 2 different parts to the answer. The first part I'll reference, OTA has a program called the Small Business, we just renamed it Small Business Advocacy or Administration. I have to look, it's not the actual SBA from the government. I'll look up the name and share the link after I wrap up. But the SBA works directly with BIPOC farmers around the country who are interested in certification. They get free membership at OTA for 3 years. They are partnered with different certifiers around the country that are volunteering their time in order to help connect those farmers directly with certification, help answer questions. There's mentorship along the way. And one of my colleagues really does a lot of that leading work in that communication and in that training. Stephanie is a really fantastic advocate in that space. In addition, through TOP, while we're working more on the business side of things, we're really partnering with all of the different stakeholders around the country to try to ensure that we're not just targeting the larger farms, but that we're working with smaller farms that are looking to expand. So our work isn't just thinking about partnering with a large business, we're also thinking about food hubs and smaller scale connections for farmers, understanding that there's a lot of barriers and concerns of working with the government agencies, the questions about certification, trust of government, all of those things are questions that our stakeholders are working with. While OTA isn't necessarily working on those solves in that space, we are partnering with all of those individuals to support farmers and help them understand entry opportunities to the market and what certification looks like.
Perfect. Thank you. And sort of building upon something that you had just mentioned as well, and also that was in your bio, as someone who has had a lot of experience with webinars, how does OTA balance the information sharing needs for both large scale industry and sort of the smaller scale organic farmers or the organizations that you had just mentioned?
Man, yes, I do have quite a familiarity with webinars. You all do a fantastic job. I have an insider perspective, so congratulations to that. I think OTA's priority is in 2 different ways. We partner with other stakeholders, and we'll do a lot of presentations with stakeholders on their webinars, not necessarily hosting, but sharing our expertise for various audiences. For example, one of the leads for another top region reached out to me about presenting a webinar about organic certification and the barriers for that for farmers in the Southeast region. One of my colleagues will be presenting at that to talk through and answer a number of questions for farmers. So that's one example where we're not leading, but we are actively engaged. And then the other is we have a pretty robust education program at OTA where we try to host webinars once to twice a month. We have to balance a number of different priorities. I mentioned the diverse set of members that we have. So we're thinking through questions like, what's a leading issue right now that we would really value having a member of the government joining us and communicating? So like when data comes out next year on the organic survey, undoubtedly we'll host a webinar with NAST in order to be able to get the information out to the farmers and to our business members to understand more about what the current farming data is telling us from their research. And then the other way is we engage with our members in so many different ways. We hear directly from them the issues that they want to hear about. So as we're thinking about products that we're developing, we're thinking about how we want to message that. So we have a webinar later this month, for example, that is specifically talking about what is happening in government right now and what are the challenges that we're all facing in the organic sector and how we as a trade association and our coalition partners are working to advocate on behalf of everyone in the supply chain. We had a webinar on fiber and organic fiber today, right? So like there's a bunch of different priorities that we have to meander through. We also offer sponsorships. And so some of our webinars are sponsored in order to ensure that we have the capacity to share key information that industry stakeholders are also identifying as important. It's hard. I will say that it is very hard. There's so much information to get out there to prioritize that. So there's a lot of strategy happening behind the scenes that's no longer in my domain, but yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for taking the time with us. I know it's such a quick turnaround with each of our speakers, but I see that there are a few more questions in the chat from Skylar, from Masha, from Alex. So if it'd be possible, if you could just take a couple minutes to
Sure.
leave your responses there, that'd be greatly appreciated. But thank you so much for your time tonight. And I will turn it back to Ryan to introduce our third speaker.
Yes. Last but certainly not least, our third speaker is Madison Letizia, who is a communications professional with a passion for advancing the organic farming movement and strengthening food security. She specializes in developing and executing comprehensive communications, fundraising, and marketing strategies to help nonprofits connect with their communities and achieve their goals. As a communications manager for OFA, she leads strategic communications and fundraising initiatives, manages editorial calendars and PR, and produces a quarterly digital magazine that amplifies the voices of organic farmers, supporters, and consumers. Through advocacy and storytelling, she strives to highlight the issues that matter most to the organic sector and policies that foster its growth. She's committed to creating a world where nutritious food is accessible to all and where the positive impacts of sustainable farming are celebrated and shared. During her free time, she likes to explore new places, dive into new podcasts, garden, and tell stories of how incredible and unusual her cat is. And something she's not paid to do, but does so gracefully, is listen to me vent when I'm pulling out my hair with all it takes to run an organization. I'm so glad and thankful to have a great partner in this work. That is Madison. And so I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be that co-worker for you, Ryan. I am so excited to be here tonight. It's a little bit of a full circle moment for me. When I was thinking about changing careers a few years ago, I watched these webinars. So this is a really nice way for me to pay that back. So I love that Anders started his segment about saying he's a city kid. I plan to start mine saying I'm a former farm kid, and I moved to the city. So my journey started in a very small town. My sister and I were 4-H kids. We raised dairy goats. We were bored a lot. I was ready to get out. I went to college. The first generation college student in my family, there was a lot of pressure with that. There was pick a degree, figure out how to do this, pave the way for your sister. And I changed my major a lot to try to figure that out. And I ended up in communications because I had there's a lovely experience with an advisor there who kind of told me, like, you built on to communications. Like, it's not the thing you do. You get to explore these other areas and, you bring your skills to it. And I absolutely love that idea. So I went with that. So I loaded up on a lot of extra courses. So my electives were a lot of political science credits because I was really interested in how everything connected and policy became what it is. And I interned in DC for a lobbying firm on Key Street, and farm kid, extra big city, you can imagine the shock that was. And I learned a lot about what I didn't want to do during that experience, and it really helped me when I went back and finished my senior year. I started to think about, uh, do I want to go one direction? Do I want to go politics? I ended up graduating, and I spent a little time in a nonprofit, but then ended up at a marketing agency. Big projects, varied clients. I love that I wasn't doing the same thing every day. And there was just like the right amount of chaos that I appreciate in a day. I like a little bit of the unknown. So I did that for a decade and, come up against burnout. It was a hectic time. This is all pre-COVID. And when the COVID shutdown happened and we were all sent home, like there was this relief from this pressure that I was feeling all the time. Like this pressure started as like first generation college student in my family. And then I went to this high pressure job and I led a team and I had this proverbial corner office I was supposed to achieve too. And I just thought, wow, I lost that lesson of college. Like, what else could I build onto and explore? And what else is there? So I took courses in sustainable agriculture. I grew up on a conventional farm. This is a little bit of a left turn from what I knew. And I also did grant writing courses. I thought like there's more that I could be doing to help. So around that time, our food system was being talked about a lot. And like my mind was blown as someone who thought she knew where her food came from. So I really started to pull that apart. I eventually landed at Organic Farmers Association, and I was able to combine my skills, the experiences, the interests, all the things that I love to do. There's a lot of variety in my today, and just like Libby said, like, okay, I can't say it better. It's like I get to work with the coolest people. So, I have like fangirl moments. Sometimes I'll be on a call and I'm like, I listened to your podcast, or I'm like, I read your book, and it's just a wild day to day that I'm really lucky to have. So I'm really glad I took that left turn. I was scared to do it. I like Anders. I waited a long time. I had a lot of skills and I didn't act on it. And I wish I would have done it earlier, but maybe it's fate. Maybe this is exactly the way it was supposed to be. So now I get to work with OFA, like I said, and we're a member-based organization. So we have a lot of organic certified farmers or those transitioning, but we also have a strong consumer base, those who support the organic community. So we provide like a collective national voice. We kind of get every farmer in the nation together with this one way to move forward, to talk about the policy needs that they want to see that would support their farm businesses or their rural communities, and how we can take that to DC and communicate that with legislators or with USDA. And we're not lobbyists. We do not have a lobbyist budget, that's for sure. But we get to do it on this more like relationship building way. And I think it's really authentic, and the farmers lead the way the whole way. And it's incredible to see, like, these farmers have a lot of hats that they're wearing every day. If you've ever heard, like, a farmer's not just a farmer, they're scientists and a mechanic, and they do everything in between. Well, they're also their own advocates for policy. So what we do is help facilitate that. So a lot of my communication work is dissecting what farmers are saying, what the policy is saying, and packaging that up into tools and resources that we can use as an education piece. So we do like a lot of fact sheets, as you can imagine, breaking down the information so it's easy to digest for legislators, or we give it to farmers so they can have those one-on-one conversations with their policymakers. And it's the stories that the farmers bring like reminded me why I wanted to do communication work in the first place. Like I will hang up after an interview with a farmer and I'll just pace around my little office here, like this silly grin on my face because I'm like, these are the people. These are the people I wanted to help. This is exactly what I wanted to be doing. I just had no idea that this was a career when I started out. So I get to see them like bring their heart and soul to something and really explain it from their perspective and the difference that it makes. So the legislators do they love to hear from farmers, and that's another thing that my job is to help with creating like those education pieces. But we also host these farmer work groups. It's the peer-to-peer collaboration where they tell us what we need. We help them shape it into policies. They're directing, they're leading the whole way. But then we help them get the meetings that they want to be able to express why this is important. Or we put together the education pieces so they could build those relationships with their legislator staff and the legislator directly, hopefully. So we also do an advocacy day in DC. We kind of do this both ways. We like to bring legislators to the farms. That's an eye-opening experience, but we also like to take farmers to DC. And there's a lot of conversation that can happen in a 15-minute meeting of like, here's who I am, and here's what I need, and here's how this impacts us in this corner of a state that's sometimes forgotten. So this is just another way that like my skills of having to take like a very big story or sometimes a very confusing story and we dial it down and we bring it out into social media posts or a magazine article or a media interview. I love the challenge of that, and I get to work with the best subjects. They have the greatest stories. So my day to day is a lot of that dissecting, figuring out how to beat the noise in a crowded space. Am I talking to members and trying to grow our membership so we're stronger together, or am I trying to convince a reporter to follow the story from this reporter? It's a lot of strategic thinking or project management skills, and I don't ever feel like it's too much. I don't have that burnout experience that I had before because there's always something moving forward. There's always this hope and this success that we're shooting for and this change that we're hoping to make. So my job is kind of like that bridge builder between the farmers and the policymakers, consumers, and even the media. And I love being behind the scenes. I love saying to a reporter, like, I have a farmer for you. Like, they will do all the talking. I've never worked with a group that needs so little media training because they just know their stories. So I also wanted to share a little bit of advice, if you will. Seems strange to say, but I'm a constant learner. So this job is, perfect for me to learn a little bit every day. But how I got here, I changed kind of careers from marketing, where I was dealing with some crazy products every day. And now I really focus on this one thing. I really went back and like self-educated myself. So webinars and educational events, I can't say enough about. And sometimes if you're looking to get experience, you can sign up for conferences, like in-person conferences as a volunteer. You can ask sometimes. And if you're a volunteer, you could get into the conference and you can really soak it up. Ag conferences, way better than marketing conferences, just have to say. But I read a lot of old books. I read a lot of old farming books. So I like to read the new topics that are coming out, but I like to go to like a cold bookstore and get the books about farming from the 70s and whatever's still in print, because I think there's a lot of knowledge that's kind of coming back to mainstream now. Podcasts, I said it in my bio, I mean it. There are some great ones out there to learn a lot from. informational interviews. This is an awesome community. If you ask for an informational interview, you know, people are really busy, but I had a lot of responses, and if they couldn't help me, they could connect me to somebody else. And that blew my mind at the time. But like now I know you all, and it's like just, of course you did. It's just the spirit of the community. I would say try an internship. So through programs like the Organic Career Network, there are a lot of internships out there that aren't meant for undergrad or graduate students solely. Like you could be, in your career doing a pivot, post grad, trying to figure out what you're going to do. Like ask if you can apply. What's it going to hurt? And I would say if you're thinking about a career in food systems or anything related to ag, get on a farm as much as possible. So um, it really is such a perspective that you can't get anywhere else. Like talk to that farmer, do that work side by side with them, and see what that day to day is like. And I really think if you're still trying to find your direction, that's a great way to get started. So I that's definitely what I wanted to share, but I'd love to take some questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much. I see that we have a question in the chat from Amanda. So can you give an example of a project where you had to learn a new marketing or storytelling skill to deliver for OFA? And what did you do to bridge that learning gap and create something that both met your org's needs and also made you personally proud?
Oh my gosh. Uh, I did not have to do a lot of interviewing before OFA. It's a very basic skill, but I was more of take the content and put it into a thing kind of marketer before. But I really wanted to, if I wanted farmer stories to tell, I had to go get them. So I had to practice my interviewing and convincing farmers to take that time to interview with me to get that story and what I was going to use it for. And there's a whole set of skills there too, and that trust building that comes with that. Like I'm going to report to you. You don't know me, I'm a stranger. It's going to be okay. So it's not necessarily a new skill or a shiny skill. It's new to me. And the way that I wanted to deploy it was very personal, it felt. So I still to this day, when I approach one of our members and I, ask for a story, I know that it's coming, from a place of, you could be a sixth generation farmer and they have a lot to tell, or they're a brand new farmer and they're scared of what they, don't know. So it's extra empathy that came with that as well as a skill. So that's a question.
All right, and I think we have time for just a very quick question. What advice would you give for students who want to get involved within the organic food systems, but maybe aren't necessarily interested in the direct production side?
Yeah, that's me. I did entertain. I still entertain. And one day I will go back and be a farmer myself. But in the meantime, I thought, well, what are the skills I have, or who do I want to be, but in this space, and who do I want to be in my life, and see what you can shape around that, because um, Ryan has done a great job of working with our partners to come up with like career profiles, like what could you do? I don't want to say like your degree shouldn't hold you back. You can pivot, you can change it up, you can swing for the fence and really try something new. So I think really try it all out is what I'm saying. But if there is something that interests you, there's probably a job in an organization that has something to do with those skills. So maybe communications and marketing is listed, but maybe it's not exactly that in the skills that you're going to bring. Maybe it's someone who likes to write, or someone who does videos, or someone has a policy background and something completely different. You have these relatable skills, and that's worth a lot. So don't count yourself out.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm sorry, we always run out of time towards the end. But I see that there's also another question from Sign. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name in the chat. So if you could take a quick moment to answer that as well about some career development, I think that'd be one greatly appreciated. Well, thank you so much for your expertise tonight. All right. And once again, we from NAFSN would love to extend a big thank you to all of our guest speakers for sharing their experiences so generously during our first episode of the 10th season. The speakers' contact information shown here will be included, along with the recording and an email sent out to all of our registrants. So please keep an eye out for that. All right. And just a quick couple of words on our next slide for NAFSN. NAFSN has a myriad of ways to help with career development, to help you find your next path, or to just, build community. So we would highly encourage you to check out the NAFSN website. We have a very dedicated federal work study student who is in charge of the NAFSN jobs board. You can check out similar jobs boards like Good Food Jobs if you're interested in organizations that are hiring. We, of course, for our all of our episodes, try to feature speakers from orgs that are also actively hiring as well. So please don't hesitate to reach out to any of the contact information that you have seen in past episodes or in future episodes. At the same time, NAFSN has a wonderful career coaching service that new members are eligible for with our co-directors, Ms. Kim Hines and Ms. Natalie Cruz. So we highly encourage you to check out a membership and see if that's right for you. And of course, there are plenty of other NAFSN programs and career professional development opportunities, including Finding Your Future in Food Systems. But we also have other podcasts available, such as the Building Evidence podcast, or other tools for building resilience or taking a look, deeper dive into your community's food system, such as the carrot tool. So we encourage you to check that out. On our next slide, you'll just see some hard skills and soft skills. These could be touched on a little bit further if you do end up signing up for one of the career coaching sessions with either Kim or Natalie, or of course reaching out to anyone on our leadership circle. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to discuss that with you. All right, and I will turn it over to Ryan, who has a very exciting announcement.
Yes, and to close, we'd like to surprise participants who attended this live session with a complimentary NAFSN membership. And so congratulations to Jess Hosh of Minnesota for being randomly selected among the 188 registrants to receive a NAFSN annual membership this week. You will also receive a second membership to give to a person of your choice.
And lastly, thank you for joining us tonight. As mentioned earlier, this is the first episode of our 10th season. Special shout out and thank you to our episode sponsor, the Organic Farmers Association, as well as all of our year-round sponsors. This programming would not have been possible without your support. Our next episode will be on March 11th and will feature Monica Chen from the New Roots Institute, Amira Dales from the Capital Area Food Bank, and Brooklyn Maloney from Grapevine Local Food Marketing. Additional episodes for season 10 will be on Wednesdays, April 8th and May 6th from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The registration link is available on the NAFSN website under the upcoming events tab. Of course, we are already planning for season 11. So if you have any suggestions for speakers or you have any areas within the food sector that you would like for us to feature speakers from, please don't hesitate to contact NAFSN leadership or myself directly. And of course, to conclude, on behalf of our entire productions team here at NAFSN, including Natalie, Kim, Vivian, Ari, Audrey, Aya, Wendy, Daniela, Durjoy, and myself, as well as our special guest co-host of this episode, Ryan, we thank you for being here with us this evening, and we hope to see you again during episode 2. And until then, we wish you well.
You've been listening to Finding Your Future in Food Systems, produced by the North American Food Systems Network. To learn more about our professional development opportunities, visit foodsystemsnetwork.org.